wanted to speak about was the contingency argument.
For you, it's more reasonable to believe that this necessary existence is not conscious, doesn't decide on when things happen, right?
Yeah.
We need to stop being dogmatic, which is that an atheist will reject this simply because they are atheists and they have to look for a naturalistic explanation. Therefore, any explanation that goes outside of that comfort zone is automatically rejected. That becomes dogma.
You put two chemicals together, immediately the reaction starts. With this necessary existence, there's no internal requirement that immediately a contingent thing has to exist from it.
Yeah, I think we would have contention on this. Actually, what I wanted to speak about was the contingency argument. In particular, I watched a stream from EFDawah Wise. I hope that you don't mind me bringing that up. If they had a live stream at the time, I would be on theirs.
No, we're happy for you to do that. That's fine.
Thanks. So there was a episode called "Best Argument Against Atheism" with Sheikh Hamza Karamali. I hope I didn't butcher that name.
That's fine. Yeah.
And he brought up his contingency argument. So I'm just going to read it quickly for you, just so that we're all on the same page. I believe I copied it or transcribed it accurately. So premise 1, everything in the universe is contingent. P2, everything that is contingent needs a necessary being to make it the way it is. Conclusion, everything in the universe needs a necessary being to make it the way that it is. Okay, that was his contingency argument. And that is cited, but according to him, as the best argument. I mean, if I watched the stream live, I would have been on there. But two things immediately struck me, but I would just like to know from you guys, and obviously my position is naturalism. And I'm also okay with pantheism. But yeah, originally I mean, I was a Christian for 25 years, but I eventually began to disbelieve. So I wanted to know from you guys, having read that, do you have any objections to that? I don't think that you would. I'm assuming.
Well, I would. I mean, rather than go into somebody else's definition and how they defined it or whatever, I would just simply ask you, do you think it's a reasonable argument that things that exist have to have an explanation of their existence?
I got no problem with P1. Everything in the universe is contingent. Mm-hmm. And a lot of atheists and naturalists would also tend to agree with that.
So do you accept the notion, when you follow that logically, do you follow the I think the necessary conclusion that something always has to exist?
Sure. And yeah.
And
something necessary needs to exist. A necessary
existence, right?
In order to ground the contingent things.
Right. And is it reasonable to say that this necessary existence is either simply a product of energy, matter, whatever it might be, but it's not conscious. It doesn't drive anything, doesn't design anything, doesn't make anything. Everything simply is a domino that falls from it without any control or consciousness or whatever. Or the other alternative is that it's indeed a conscious being that decides on when things take place and when things happen. Is it reasonable to assume that one of these are probably true?
Okay, so let's just preface that saying that let's just keep it to those two options and say that there may be more options, okay, that we're not discussing here, but let's keep those two options, because that would probably best sum up the naturalistic point of view on the one side and the theistic point, theistic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very broad definition, because either it's a conscious or a non-conscious, necessary existence. I don't think there are any other options. It's either conscious, alive. It's conscious, or it's not alive. It's just a dead thing, whatever it is. It's not conscious, not living, as it were. Right.
Right.
Which one of the two do you find more reasonable, or let's say on balance of probability more likely?
So as a naturalist, the first one. Before I would have, obviously as a Christian, I would have said your second.
Okay. So you believe that for you, it's more reasonable to believe that this existence, this necessary existence, is not conscious, doesn't decide on when things happen, right?
Yeah.
And so therefore, every process that comes from this necessary existence is simply like a domino falling, and, you know, everything just happens from this thing, uncontrolled, as it were.
Okay. So, I mean, the analogy of dominoes is, I would say, would be incorrect. Because
when I say domino,
because the problem is that, you know, you're going to get to, well, there needs to be a first domino, right?
yes.
So I understand that, but yeah, I mean, there's so many things going through my mind at the moment. It's difficult to get everything out. So no, I don't actually agree with that.
So how would you phrase it then? Not a series of dominoes. I mean, a series of cause and effect, unguided. Would that be sufficient to explain it in that way?
Okay, so the thing is that a lot of naturalistic philosophers would say that, let's say T equals 0, the moment of the Big Bang, the moment that this universe was instantiated. Okay, yes, your domino analogy begins at that moment. The problem, or the difference that we have, the divide that we have, comes in what began that domino effect at T equals 0.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
and there has to be something that precedes T equals 0, doesn't there?
Well, let's imagine that there is.
Well, there has to be.
Some philosophers would say that there isn't, or that we cannot know.
I know,
blah,
but
blah, blah,
then you'd have to. Yeah, I understand, but then you'd be arguing from an absence of everything, including any potential reality, came an existence and a reality without even having the potential.
Yes.
What I'm
Zero
saying,
potential. Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
But there has to be a potential, otherwise you can't have T equals 0 coming into existence. Exactly. Okay. Exactly. So the point I'm trying to make to you is, that's why I'm trying to ask you, in terms of why it's more reasonable from your perspective that it's an unguided process, because whatever this necessary existence is, since it's non-conscious, since it doesn't guide effects happening from it, it had an eternity for every effect, every possible effect to have come about.
Okay, an eternity for every possible effect to come about in which state? From T equals 0?
From any state.
Before? From
any state, because we're talking about infinity.
Right.
Now, our universe came into existence 14.3 or 13.7 or 40 billion years, however long ago you want to say. But it came about at a particular point in time in history, which was 13.7 or 14.3 billion years ago. So to me, that seems more likely that this was a conscious being deciding on a specific time when this universe was going to come into existence. Had it been an unguided process through the law of entropy and everything else, what we would have had is every possible effect would have already taken place, and there would be no matter and energy or anything else effectively even registerable that you could register, simply because it would just dilute itself into an infinite space of time and space. But we see a universe that has a beginning at a specific time, arranged in a specific way, with specific laws, etc., etc., etc. And so for me, it seems like a more reasonable argument to suggest that the necessary existence actually makes a decision when to bring things into existence. And it can't be an unguided process that could have happened infinitely in the past. I mean, I don't know. Do you think that's a reasonable argument I've made?
I mean, it's a reasonable argument from a theistic point of view.
No, not from a theistic point of view, from any point of view.
It's reasonable.
Yeah. So that's all I'm saying. That's our stance. And the point is that not only does it explain this, the beginning of the universe and everything else, but even things from our own lives in terms of value, whether it's value of a child as opposed to a rock, morality, what's good for us, what's bad for all of these things are not explained by a unconscious necessary existence, but in fact a conscious, intelligent, necessary existence that guides that process and then helps its creation to differentiate between whether what the Israelis are doing in Gaza is actually an abhorrent crime or just a rearranging of atoms.
Okay.
Because I just finished. Because in reality, without the necessary existence being conscious and guiding that process, you can argue what's happening in Gaza is simply a rearrangement of atoms. It's morally just as bad as smashing a rock. But it's only when you have that necessary existence, which is a conscious being that teaches that moral code of morality, that gives you the ability to decipher all of what reality is for us as human beings. Otherwise, it's just do as you want, whatever feels right for you, go for it. So there's so much more, I think, that adds to that that stance that we have as a I think a rational theist would have.
Okay. Okay. So can I make my case?
Of course. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So heard everything that you said. As a theist, I would have agreed with pretty much everything that you said. I think so by me acknowledging that it's a rational point of view to hold, I felt that I was a rational person, and I still am. I think I am. I was a rational person being a theist. I believe that both of you are rational people, and the majority of humans and theists are rational. So I can't say that it's an irrational position to hold. So by me granting that that's a rational position to hold, it doesn't necessarily follow that I'm going to agree with every single other step that you're going to add on from that position. So I basically just want to go back to that dichotomy that we had, right? And explain the other side of the story. So just in terms of the contingency argument that there was on Dawa Wise, premise 2 is introducing a necessary being into premise 2. That is the point of contention that pretty much every single atheist is going to have, because by introducing this being, okay, there is absolutely no foundation for what that being is. There's no explanation of what the being is. You're not saying it could be green leprechauns, being. I mean, it could be a unicorn, right? So by introducing that statement is not going to be a good argument for an atheist, because we reject the assumption that there is some kind of necessary being in where? In a supernatural realm, in the natural realm, inside all of reality, outside of all of reality. Is it subject to time? Is it not subject to time? There's no. By introducing that, you immediately kill the argument for any atheist that is considering this as a good argument for against atheists.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to let Dr. Imran come in there, but I'm just going to make 2 points before I allow Doctor to please come in there. One is that we need to stop being dogmatic, which is that an atheist will reject this simply because they are atheists and they have to look for a naturalistic explanation. Therefore, any explanation that goes outside of that comfort zone is automatically rejected. That becomes dogma. And I think I would be honest enough to say that look, people can be dogmatic from religion and non-religious stances, but dogma doesn't help here. The other thing is that how would we know what this necessary existence is? Would we know it simply by using our rationale, or would we know it if this necessary existence actually connected with its creation and informed its creation about its reality? And we would, as theists, argue that the only way of knowing about the necessary existence, of course, from our perspective, this would be God Almighty, this would be Allah, is by Allah telling us about himself. And now you could ask the question, but how do you know which text, which religion and what have you to follow? Well, that's a process, right? That's a process of elimination, of investigation, of contemplation. And then you go with wherever the evidence hopefully takes you, if you're a rational person. And for us, we would argue that that would be the Quran and that would be Islam, right? But I'd let the doctor, inshallah, continue with that. But I'd let you come back to what I've just said, and then doctor can continue, inshallah.
Welcome. Sorry, what's your name? Because we've got a naturalist there. Can we call you something? You can make something up. It doesn't have to be your actual name.
Just call me T.
T. Okay, T. So T, thank you for coming on, and I appreciate you saying good words about Ijaz, and we wish him well. I'm not sure, to a certain extent, the formulation of the argument that you provided from the other stream, which I haven't seen, it's very truncated of the actual argument that's presented usually for contingency. I don't agree that with some of your conclusions about leprechauns, etc., because I think leprechauns probably require explanation, but we won't go into that. So I just want to understand your position. Do you on the contingency argument, which we don't want to confuse with the argument from causality or the Kalam cosmological argument, do you accept that there has to be an external explanation of all contingent things? Is that something you arrive at, or you don't?
Sure. And I will even grant a necessary something necessary to ground the contingent things. Sure.
Okay. And so just to summarize where you are then, because this is really the stage one, isn't it, of the contingency argument, of these types of arguments. So things exist. If everything exists is contingent, then there would be no external explanation of the contingent things. There isn't an external explanation of contingent things, because otherwise you will never be able to explain them. And therefore, not everything is contingent, and there has to be something non-contingent. And therefore, that something is necessary, a necessary existence.
100%. I agree with that. Yeah,
we're absolutely fine. So what we're saying is that there is something which is an explanation for all things which are contingent, which itself is not contingent. That means in itself it requires no external explanation.
Yeah.
And that is the foundation from which everything that we see, everything which is contingent that comes, universities, whatever we're thinking about. So there's some things can we do, so that this is the first stage. So I'm great that that's the case. The second stage is to then try and almost do like thought experiments in terms of what properties must this contingent thing necessarily have that can bring about the contingent things that we see.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when we go into those types of thought experiments, and I want to do a caveat. I'm not a philosopher. There's a great channel I'd recommend to you. It's called the Thought Adventure Podcast, and it's by some brothers who are very much into the philosophical mindsets. And what they do is that they went through stage 1 and stage 2 with interactions with atheistic colleagues, etc., in a really great way over 3 or 4 hours, and it's worth watching that. And that's the Thought Adventure Podcast. But the next stage, the second stage is
I know
really
with pondering, Yusuf pondering.
pondering.
What's
Yeah,
it?
Yusuf Ponders
Pondering
is on
Yusuf.
there. Brother
Ponders.
Abdul Rahman is on there,
Yeah.
and
I
brother.
watch a lot of Muslim streams.
Yeah, so brother Abu, I forgot his name. Subhanallah, mine's gone out of my. It's I don't know why I forgot his name. He speaks to me all the time, but it's just gone out of my head. But and brother Jake Brancatello also is on there as well, and they have some really in depth. And they even got Rasmussen to come on, who's a great advocate.
I've
for
just put the link up for their channel.
The link is there for you, brother. So
Sure.
they even got Rasmussen to come on to explain why things need to be explained, and then go through the contingency argument. So it's really they went. Brother Sharif, thanks you, Shinas, for reminding me.
I think that I saw a stream which was like 3 hours or something like that long,
Yeah.
and I just haven't gotten around to watching it. But I've watched a lot of other contingency arguments or
Sure.
Debates and stuff like this.
So I understand. So and the reason I'm recommending that is because that's going to be much better than my attempts that I'm going to do with you today. But and it's all something you can take your time whenever you're traveling to and from work or whatever you do. You can have a listen. But the second stage, then, once you accept that there is something necessary that itself is non-contingent, there are certain things that are entailed within that because it brings about the things that are contingent. A is that this contingent existence that we have is a huge amount of energy and matter, which are interchangeable, huge amount. Mm-hmm. So that thing must at least have enough, whatever power that is, to bring about this amount of energy and power. So phenomenal. I mean, we probably could measure it, but it would take a lot of thinking to do that. But phenomenal amounts of power.
Sure.
We will agree with. Okay. So we've got this. I don't want to use these sort of superlatives, all powerful, but we've got a very powerful being, and something that we have no other. So at one point, I didn't clarify. You agree that there has to be one necessary existence, right?
Yes.
Okay, great, perfect. So it's a one necessary existence that has enough power to bring about what a universe is that we see around us. The second thing is that. There is nothing compelling that necessary existence because itself is not contingent anything else to bring about any action. Is that reasonable?
Yes.
So any action that arises has to.
I just want to say one thing very quickly. The word compelling immediately is.
I know it's probably not a good language, but
it's I would have contention for that, but I'm for the sake of argument and brevity.
I'm glad you clarified that. So let's try and think of a better way of expressing that. And like I said, I'm not a philosopher, so I'm trying to sort of think as we go. So that necessary existence that brings about this very powerful, in terms of energy and matter, thing that we see, which is the contingent existence. Mm-hmm. There is nothing. It's how would I phrase this? I want to sort of make sure that I'm saying in the right way.
There is nothing that influences it.
Yeah, it externally cannot be made to bring about an effect. Has to be internal within it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm trying to use the word
within its nature.
Within its nature. That's fine. Within its nature. And then now that we have this powerful, it's within its nature to bring about that effect. It's not mechanistic. Do you agree with that?
Why?
Okay. And this was the point that Brother Abbas was making to you. So mechanisms, I would say they require explanation, but mechanisms themselves, when they bring about effects, do they bring about effects temporally or continually?
What do you mean by temporally because the word temporally is going to mean within our universe, and so continually. Are you saying eternally or not eternally?
Yes.
So
that's what I mean.
So this mechanistic concept that we are bringing in is going to be the point of contention between us. Yeah. Because I wouldn't call it mechanistic.
Great.
So let me very quickly give you my perspective.
Could I ask you one quick before you continue?
Sure.
Why wouldn't you call it mechanistic?
I think it's just the wrong term to use. More like, because mechanistic sounds very like, I mean, I suppose you can say mechanism, but mechanistic sounds very robotic. I don't know if you know what I mean.
So what I'm trying to say by that, let me just explain it. So what I mean by mechanistic is that it's not inevitable that with the existence of the necessary existence, that the contingent existent has to be instantaneously, if we can even use that word, created. So that's a mechanism. So I'll give an example. You put two chemicals together that have no. So as soon as you join them together, the laws that govern that interaction mean immediately the reaction starts. There's no way that those particles can hold off and wait to react. They have to react according to the laws that are within that mixture.
Govern them. Yeah, sure.
So with this necessary existence that brings about everything else, when I say it's not mechanistic, there's no internal requirement that immediately something has to immediately a contingent thing has to exist from it.
Yeah, I think we would have contention on this point.
I agree. I understand.
So let me quickly just basically give you my perspective. So there are about at least 4 other philosophers that I know of that share. This is basically their perspective as well. Quentin Smith, Graham Oppy, Paul Draper, and Sean Carroll. Sean Carroll less so because he's going to introduce multiverse and other stuff. But basically, it boils down to we can explain pretty much everything that, almost everything, or a large degree of things inside our universe, how things came about, right? Stars, planets, gases. Let's imagine that we already have a scientific explanation for all of them. Give me the scientific explanation for the creation of the quantum field.
So I don't understand the reason for the question.
The
reason.
The problem is we can go back contingently all the way back to t equals 0. And we can explain every let's hypothetically say we can explain every phenomena we've worked out every phenomena from the Big Bang. This is just hypothetically speaking.
Yeah. No.
Right now, science has absolutely no clue about how the underlying quantum field or quantum substrate that underlies our existence, came into being. We don't know. So the problem is that it's either the quantum substrate could be the underlying substrate that is eternal, that produced this universe,
So can I ask a quick question?
The quantum field that produced this, or a phenomena arising from that. I would just like to finish this section. It's either the quantum field is eternal, or something more fundamental as a substrate underneath the quantum field that brought about what we call the quantum field in this state. It may exist in a different state, in an underlying state or substrate. We call this the quantum field. So let me ask you, I mean, what do you imagine exists between an electron and a proton? Because something always exists in our universe, and that we call currently the quantum field, right? So this comes from quantum field theory. So contingently, we can explain from the quantum field how elements are, let's say, produced, how protons are basically, when they are made up of quantum particles, An electron is made up of a quanta particle. Now, if you have two sounds, like I say yay and yay, between those two sounds, there was silence, But there is an underlying field of potential energy, okay? And that's the problem. The quantum field holds the potential through naturalistic processes to potentially, and I'm not saying that we know this for a fact, but there are phenomena, for example, quantum tunneling, that is a process that happens in the sun, and that's what Alexander Vilenkin believes that process was responsible for the creation of this universe, okay? Besides that, we don't know exactly how and when radioactivity is produced. That's a completely random process. Virtual particles, neutrinos. There are multiple things that we contingently cannot actually tell where they come from. So we cannot actually say, even scientists cannot say where the quantum field that produced this universe came from. And that's what a sizable portion of naturalists would believe.
I think we're talking past each other at the moment, see. Because do you think, are you making the claim that the quantum...
Well, your mechanism is a naturalistic process. So you guys would constantly say, well, we don't believe that a naturalistic process or a mechanism within nature can produce this universe.
No,
and
that's not what we're saying.
Would...
That's not what we're saying.
Okay, so, then I don't understand what you're saying.
So let's
that's what I thought, a mechanism. That's what I thought you meant by a mechanism.
I agree with you. So you're not making the argument that any of the things you mentioned, quantum fields, neutrinos, whatever, are outside of the universe or outside of contingent existence.
Yes, the problem is that quantum field may exist because we don't know where it comes from. It may exist outside of this universe. It may be the underlying substrate from which universes. So imagine this. In our universe, we have black holes. We don't know if there is a universe, a micro-universe inside any of the black holes in our universe, right? So you could say, well, where did that come from? The problem is that there could be, and so I'm saying could be, and I understand, we don't know, okay? So, and I hope you don't mind me saying, scientists don't know, I don't know, but I cannot say for sure, and I don't think anybody on this planet can say where exactly the quantum field came from. And there is a high potential that the quantum field could produce universes. If not the quantum field that we experience within this universe, the thing that produced, or the field or state that produced what we call the quantum state or quantum field in this universe. So that's the problem.
I understand what you're saying, but I think that the issue we're having here is that we've disagreed with the thing that we started agreeing with, which was that everything that we see is contingent.
Everything inside this universe is contingent, right?
So, okay. So are you saying that the quantum field exists outside of the universe?
Right. The quantum field is the necessary existence for this universe.
Based upon what?
Like I said, we don't know where the quantum field comes from. It's the one uncontingent thing that we cannot identify contingently what it is. Therefore, it's perfectly reasonable to say that the quantum field is the necessary existence upon which this entire universe exists and was created. Okay, created, I'm using the term loosely here, by naturalistic processes. Okay, and the quantum field is the necessary existence.
Yeah, that doesn't follow, T, and I'll tell you why that's the case. Just something that you can just to think about. So the idea, the idea that the quantum field is something that can bring about the universe. So tell me, how does the quantum field work? How do we understand it so far in terms of something is at a quantum level, and then what happens?
So the quantum field in quantum field theory, and I'm not a physicist, okay? I'm not a physicist and I'm not a philosopher. But essentially, the quantum field is a field of potential energy that underlies all matter and space, time and space within this universe. Okay, it's the thing from which atoms are created. I'm saying created. All energy basically is
how
derived from the quantum field.
So
all
how is that-
energy, all states, everything.
I
So
understand.
between an atom and a proton and an electron, there is the quantum field. An electron is an excitation of the quantum field.
How does it
Okay.
manifest?
It manifests within the quantum field. I
How-
don't
I'm
actually
asking you the question.
understand exactly,
Okay.
but there is a
So,
layer, a field called the
I think this is the
electron
problem that we're
field.
having, T. So the problem we're having, T, is that we're arguing about a field, no pun intended, that none of us that are in depth knowledgeable on. And the reason I'm saying that is because you've heard of the wave function, right?
Sure.
Okay, so the concept is
Yeah.
that some fluctuation in the quantum field brings about a wave function, which then has to collapse for something to materialize.
Well, it doesn't bring about the wave function. I mean, the function is how we understand this. Let's call it a law. I don't actually like the word law, but the function is what we mathematically write down as what's happening in the quantum field.
No, I'm going to give an example. So you've heard of the double slit experiment, right?
Sure.
Well, we've gone away from that thing. We're just explaining something separate now, just so that we've come to an impasse and we're just trying to explain. So how does the double slit experiment work? Do you understand?
Yeah, basically you have two slits and you can't predict which slit
So you fire a single photon through the slits.
The slit, and through only probabilistically, you know, there is a probability of it going through either slit. But we can't measure that exactly.
What do you see? So it's not about the probability, it's about the results. So what do you see on the other side when they're recording where the photon lands? What markings would you see on the other side?
Little dots. What do you mean by markings?
Would you see two clusters of dots or more, or what would you see?
Yeah, two clusters of dots.
Okay. What do we actually see?
What do you mean?
So 2 is the intuitive answer. You're firing photons through two slits. That's one at a time, and you would expect to see two clusters of the slit where the slits coinciding with the slits of recording of these marks on the other side. But what do we see? Is we see multiple clusters in line.
Interference pattern.
Yeah,
right. The interference patterns.
And what does the interference pattern mean? So why are we not seeing 2, but we're seeing 5, 6, 7, 8 of these lines instead?
I don't remember exactly, but I think that it had to do with the. I don't actually want to.
Okay, I'll explain.
but I'll explain. What I understand is that
the reason I'm explaining
electrons.
I understand.
Yeah.
It explains the point. I'm explaining this to explain the point that I'm trying to make earlier. So what we see is that we get a pattern of clusters of these markings of the photons that can only be explained by the coinciding of waves. And so what we know from that, what is thought from that, is that particles exist in waveform.
Waves and
this is the
energy.
Waveform, and then and it's interesting. They only exist in waveform when they're not being observed. So you get two different sets of results. If you observe the experiment, if there is a conscious observer, you get two markings. If there is not a conscious observer, you get multiple markings there. So the waveform. So this is the non-uncertainty principle. No. This is something existing in waveform. It's not actualized until it's observed by an observer. Now I'm going to apply this to the quantum field. So when the quantum field generates whatever it's generating, what's actualizing it?
I'm not exactly sure how to answer or what exactly
Okay,
you
so
mean. What's actualizing it, I guess, is
if
peaks
quantum
within the
fields
quantum
generate,
field.
yeah, if quantum, let me give the question. If quantum fields are generating waveforms,
Mm-hmm.
what's actualizing it?
I don't know.
Conscious observer.
Okay.
So I would posit to you. So because we're going to be going around about a field that we're not all au
Right.
fait with. So I'll just tell you my position. There is at some point that the universe was at a quantum level. It was in the waveform existence. I'm going to put it that way. Maybe it's incorrect grammar or statement or whatever it might be. For that to actualize, it requires an external conscious observer. I'm saying to you that the external conscious observer is that necessary existence that brings about the reality that we're living in now, the contingent reality. For me, that makes sense. It fits with even actually some of the observations we're making, although science is not a barometer that I go with. But
so
the other
wait,
thing
are you saying that your necessary being is the conscious observer that's observing this universe into existence almost?
if the universe is ever a quantum level, 100%. And we know from inflation theory that was the case.
That's quite a cool perspective, because if it's only observers that brings this universe into existence, then what happened to the first 13 billion years if nobody was observing that, right?
Because that's right. And this is where that thing comes in, that because we have an aged universe, we can age it. We can put a time to the beginning. That there has to be some volition that brings that about, as opposed to it being an internal generative property. Let's not call it a mechanism that automatically generates continued existences, because our universe would then have maybe be infinite, or maybe being 100 billion years old, or 600 million billion years old, or whatever.
Yeah, and in fact, at the beginning of the universe, we're told that,
and we would be looking out, and the distance between us and the stars would be such that the sky would be black, because the light would never reach us.
Yeah.
And we don't find that that's the universe that we're living in.